I've seen some recent images. I know Gary had an image he just posted today, maybe. And then I know
Did, yeah.
Brett has a bunch of data. I don't know what Brett's been cooking. There's definitely stuff out here. I
I
see
think
some
it's
images.
coming. I think
I
it's
just sent an
coming.
email, John, to you and to Gary.
And I know Brett has a bunch of.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah,
We'll take a
Gary's
look.
image of the rosette was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, it's coincidental that I was processing it. I captured the data back in the beginning and middle of March because I was just trying to cherry pick. I had about an hour and a half to 2 hour window each night between the trees. And so it was really sort of critical to kind of get up and running early in the night and get the data. And there has been a lot of high thin clouds and stuff floating in. And I thought, I keep hearing that narrow band is really forgiving to a lot of that stuff. And I even I was thinking, well, if it's a little hazy, I'll shoot hydrogen alpha and sulfur because those are longer wavelengths. And people always say how these space telescopes are shooting in the IR to see through the clouds and all this stuff. I thought, what do I have to lose? I mean, it's the stuff sitting out in the yard. I just have to kind of walk out, check my polar alignment, turn it on, and then set up the iPad script to capture. And after 9 nights of cherry picking data, a lot of I threw out because there were branches in it or big clouds came over. I wound up putting it together over the last, I guess it was about a week ago. Then we went out of town. Tracy and I went out of town for a while. So yesterday I thought, oh, the meeting's coming up tonight. Let me get back to that and kind of finish it up. I had done the preliminary stacking. I had done all that kind of stuff, and I put that together. It was about three iterations. I'm still learning this monochrome stuff. So it took about three processing tries. The first two were with the same data. Then one night, it was clear and I wasn't expecting it, and I was really low on hydrogen alpha data. I was like an hour and a half, 2 hours shy of that. And I thought, well, that's like one night. Let me just go out and just shoot hydrogen alpha. And it wasn't a great night, but the moon was like at 82% or something like that. And I thought, there's some high clouds, but it's a long wavelength. Let's see what happens. So the third processing cycle was with that new data added in. I can show it if you both
What
versions.
filters are you using, Gary?
I'm using the Antlia.
Okay.
I bought the LRGB SHO kit that they have, the 3 nanometer SHO, and then whatever the standard RGB is. Um, and the luminance is just broadband filter, basically anti-reflective glass.
You can share now, Gary.
Okay. And let's see, we'll do it. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to get this out of the way. Come on. So I'll share my screen and let me get this out of the way.
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, you should see just the desktop now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is my first attempt at doing it. And this was lacking.
It disappeared. It popped up and then disappeared. Did you
It
slide it
disappeared.
off? Looked
Mm-mm.
like you slid it off the screen.
No, it's still there. Let me do this. I put it in full screen mode. Maybe that
Oh,
I maximized it to full screen. So I'll just leave it in the window.
yeah.
But and I was happy with this. I mean I think it's pretty cool. This is shot in my backyard,
We still don't see it.
and the skies have been pretty murky. So SQM readings that I was getting were like 18.4, 18.6 on a good night, something like that.
We're still not seeing it, Gary.
You're not seeing it?
Just see
No.
thumbnails in a folder.
Oh, it must be on the wrong screen. It might think, hold on, let me see. You see a folder there?
We see a
Yes.
folder with like 7 pictures. Oh yeah, now there's a
Oh,
folder.
okay, I'll move it here then. Now you're seeing it?
There you go.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, it thinks desktop one is my right screen. It's
Yeah.
desktop one is my left screen.
Other left.
Yeah, I shared one, but maybe the system
Yeah,
maybe the
this looks
system
good.
changed. And anyway, as long as you can see it, that's
Yeah,
let me
there
get
we
this.
go.
So this was shot this is about what would it be, around like 13 hours worth of data. So still lots of data. So very low noise. And I was happy with it. I didn't like some of the sort of color cast in the background here. You know, this is a fairly nebulous region, and I'm still kind of learning this color balancing with the RGB, with the false color stuff, using the SHO filters in a kind of RGB space. And then I wound up going to this image. This is the full data. This is what I posted today. So you can see there's more hydrogen alpha. So the yellows got a little richer because the red sort of blended with those greens to give that brownish hue. I also added a little more oxygen data. One night I was able to do a little bit of oxygen. So this area came up a little more, the blue stuff. And then I did some selective masking in the background before I recombine the stars to basically remove some of the chromiums from the background. So that's why the background is a little more neutral, in addition to doing background neutralization on just the background. But by basically masking out all of this stuff. One thing that was interesting compared to the I had posted that picture with the flaming star nebula and the tadpoles, and I showed you guys that last month. This one's kind of interesting because you can see here there's this purplish hue, and I think that's real. I don't think that's artifact. I think it would come because there was a fair amount of oxygen in this data set compared to those, especially compared to like the flaming star, which had almost no oxygen, just a little bit sort of in that central tendril that's sort of in there, that wispy tendril in the flaming star. But this has a fair amount of oxygen, as you can tell here, and it also bleeds out into this area. And that would make sense because the hydrogen alpha is mapped to red, and the oxygen's mapped to blue, and red and blue give you purple. So I think that's just a large overlap between oxygen and hydrogen data in this image. And then I always like to do this little. I'm not sure. It's a little hard to tell that I'm on the same screen. Oh, here we go. I don't want to close the Zoom session, so let me do that. I always annotate these things, and I always look for these little galaxies, these little PGCs, and that's always a test of kind of, am I blowing out? Am I setting the black point too high? And you can actually see here that there is a non-stellar thing there.
Yeah.
I haven't looked this one up, but I know in the past I've looked up the limiting magnitude of my setup in my backyard with a fair amount of data. Last time I did it, it was about maybe like 8 or 7 or 8 hours worth of data. This is close to 14 and 3/4 hours worth of data. But I was able to get to around 18th magnitude from my backyard if you get enough data. kind of thing, if I get above 5 hours or something like that.
And with really narrow bands. So,
Yeah, yeah. In this particular case, that's with broadband. You're right. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of that.
oh yeah.
And even in this one looks stellar to me. But the other one definitely is non-stellar. So anyway, that's that. Where's this?
Yeah, it's always interesting. There is a lot of O3. It's cool to start to get to know different objects and what they're made up of and how they show.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then
Question.
the other thing I put together, I didn't post this yet, is I've been working on the Leo triplet. This is with the same setup, except this is I'm sorry, this is RGB and H alpha.
Uh,
So this isn't, I have M8, the M81, M82 I showed last month that had luminance in addition to it. This was an experiment to try it without luminance, to see how much of a difference it really makes. And that's about 9 hours worth of data. So a fair amount of data, but you can see there's a lot of HA in this.
Hmm.
It's a little noisier than I like. So I'll probably try to grab some more data. But you can see these guys, especially this, has a fair amount of hydrogen alpha. And if you look at the Hamburger galaxy in the Leo triplet, I think you can see it back there.
yeah.
You can see it in the back, but that dust, that sort of bifurcating dust lane is so prominent, edge on, that I think it obscures that. If you picture that and then go back to this, if you put this edge on, you can see a lot of that dust in there, the browns and stuff like that. I think if you put that edge on, it would, it would probably hide a lot of that HA, the hydrogen alpha also. So that's that. And
That's
this
neat.
one, if you go to the,
How much was that of each channel, Gary?
what's that?
How much was it with each channel? How much time?
They're pretty evenly split. They're about roughly like 2 hours, 2.5 hours per channel.
Okay.
The HA in that was a little bit low. I'm just trying to scroll around so I don't have to resize stuff. I thought I had I didn't have that. I was looking for the sorry, I was looking for I thought I had the annotation one in this folder. Because there's, it's just like anything else. When you put that in this space, when you're looking at this sort of spring galaxy region of the sky, there's like half the things you think are stars are actually galaxies when you plate solve it and do the the real faint galaxy set. And then the other one I did, which I really kind of like. Get rid of that. Since I'm on the wrong desktop. This one. This one. So this was taken at the Big Dipper Lodge last September when we were up there with the DVAA outing. And I had the data, and I didn't really do too much with the data when I came back. I did some star trails, stuff like that. And then Bill McGeeney had posted that really incredible image from when he and Caitlin were up in Canada, where he used sort of a background Milky Way shot from the same session as sort of an anchor image, and then put the star trail on top of that. And I thought that was a really cool technique. So I took it a tiny bit further, and I took the last 16 images of this data set. So you can see all the little exposures in there, right? And this was the cleanest data set that I had. The night before, I did the same thing. I kind of looked and checked the camera for exposure. So there were gaps there were little gaps here and there, and I didn't like the way that looked. So this was a data set that was shot in the wee hours. It's 213 30-second images. So it's about roughly 2 hours worth, a little under 2 hours worth of data, but there are no gaps in it. If you look at the longest star trails, you can't find a missing exposure. And it also happened to be, out of the 800 or so exposures I took that night, it happened to be a segment that didn't have an airplane going through it, and something like that would be distracting. Because the first night I did a similar thing, and it just didn't look that good. You could see other trails, stuff like that. I mean, it was fine, but this data looked better. So I redid it again using the second night's data and came up with this. So what I did was these stars, the star trails all end at the same position the Milky Way is, as you see, like the dominant image that you see there. But what I did was I thought, let me try taking some Milky Way. You know, they're fairly noisy, right? In this kind of setup, it was ISO of 3200, something like that, and I thought, let me try stacking the last 16 of those Milky Way images in PixInsight and just kind of process it the way I would. I shot in RAW and JPEG with my DSLR. So I took the RAW files, threw those into PixInsight, PixInsight from my Canon camera. They're CR3 files. PixInsight opened them right up. And I thought, let me just do this like I would, you know, a wide field image, or, you know, or like I should say a deep sky image, but for the wide field data. So I did that. I took 16 images, stacked them, registered them, you know, using one of those images. The last one in this sequence is the base image. And then I stretched them, and I did a little bit of blur exterminator, a little bit of noise exterminator. I thought, let me just see what happens. And I came out with this kind of cool Milky Way image that also had a little bit of blurring in it, because you would expect that, because this is a fixed tripod. So this is sticking a DSLR with a 17 millimeter lens. I think it was set to 19 millimeters for the framing. On a fixed tripod, using one of the aftermarket intervalometers. So every 30 seconds, it took like a 28-second exposure or something like that, and did that for 4 hours or 5 hours before I went to bed. So the fixed tripod. So you would expect, you know, as the data is stacking, the foreground isn't tracking the stars, so the foreground is going to blur when PixInsight stacks it, or when anything stacks it. And I kind of like that effect, because it wound up playing in nicely with the star trails. And when I put the star trail image on, let me go to that. So this is that's the star trail image. You can see the foreground is really sharp, as you would expect, you know, other than like maybe the branches blowing a little bit, but that was a pretty calm night. So that's the star trail image. And that's the Milky Way shot stacked out of PixInsight. So you can see that it's blurred. When I put those together, some of that detail from the non-blurred image comes through. So it actually adds a little bit of detail to the blurry stuff and makes it look sort of less blurred. And I thought that was a really, really kind of cool effect. I'm just bouncing through so I don't have to deal with moving stuff back and forth, since I'm on the wrong monitor. Anyway, that's the end result. And I thanked Bill in that email. I also thanked him separately, in case he didn't see that email, the posting, for like turning me on to a pretty cool technique. And something about this image draws me in, and I think it's because here is the celestial equator, and you know, everyone talks about the celestial sphere, right? That we're looking at sort of this at the projection of the stars on this sort of spherical shape. And this would be, the North Pole, basically, of that sphere, and then the South Pole's down there. And in the center, you would expect the stars on the celestial equator, you would expect them to transverse, in a straight line, which they do. So here you see it curving near the Polaris, you see it curving this way, and towards the South Polar point, it's curving that way, which I thought was a really cool effect. This is about 110-degree field of view, something like that. At 19 millimeters, it's a full frame. It's a full frame camera. So
Harry, what was your ASA setting on this?
I think it was a 3200. I can look at the file, but I'm 99% sure it was ISO 3200.
So Gary, you on the star trails, the very end of the star trail, the star is more prominent, but it's not on the individual picture of the star trail or of the Milky Way.
Well, on the Milky Way it is.
Okay. So
Yeah. So here's back and forth.
They lined up perfectly.
Oh, well, I used Photoshop to put them together.
Okay.
And I mean, I needed to overlay them.
Okay.
And that's where sort of, the sort of artsy side comes in.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I must have spent, I would guess, 2 hours with these two final images, laying them on top of one another, trying different blending modes with the stars on top, reducing the intensity of the stars. These stars are around 60% of the intensity of this image.
Okay.
And that had a much cooler look to me. It kind of drew me in more because it almost looked like the stars were all part of a giant meteor shower or something. Like the stars were kind of raining down. If I went too bright, like this is 100%. So and you wouldn't expect to see the big end because it's the same exposure as every other. If you zoom in, you can see all the 213 tiny exposures in there. Here's a little color fringing from Vega, which you would expect out of a camera lens. This is considered an ultra wide camera lens, a full frame camera lens. So also with the Milky Way shot, I did the curves such that I would enhance the sort of portion towards the galactic center, where it starts to get more sort of orangey stuff like that, where you get some of those browner hues and those richer colors. And then remember, this is a dark sky site. This is Cherry Springs, so you got stuff going right down to the southern horizon because the Susquehannock State Forest is there and like nobody lives there. So if you look at this is at 100% in that final image. One interesting thing is that if you really zoom in, you can see all these little artifacts from the star trails because I tried using blur exterminator, and these were 30-second exposures. So the stars did have a little trail to them, and that took it all out, but it left the artifact. And I thought, so what? I'm going to put that on top of it. You'd never see that.
You can't see it now.
And if you look at it, you don't see it. Maybe one interesting thing to show, if you guys want, I could just quickly show you a single frame of that Milky Way, just to give you an idea what stacking 16 of them did. Let me open that up real fast. So this was a single frame. Can't see the file name. So 42. So I'll go to exposure 4210 which was the last one in the series. So this is that's a single exposure. So if I zoom in, it's noisy. You can see the trails because, I knew it would trail, but I was making a star trail picture, so who cares if it trails, right? I wanted to get as much kind of depth as possible without getting a little crazy, without going too crazy. So stacking them, stretching them. Now this is a JPEG. If I put the raw in there and then stretched it, obviously this could be stretched and would come up more. And to answer, just definitively answer the ISO question, let me just take another quick look. Oh, I'm sorry, 6400. This is ISO 6400. So very, very fast. I usually don't shoot that fast. So if you look at that, come on. I can't grab it's hard to grab the frame when it's sitting kind of in the wrong place. Okay, we're just going to close that. So when you look at that compared to that, even though it has all that weird artifact, it's a significantly, significantly less noisy image. And the fact that I'm stacking 16 of them gave it a lot more depth. And in addition to helping to reduce the noise.
Gary, is your DSLR modified in any way for astrophotography?
No, it's a stock Canon RP. It's kind of the low end. It's probably their lowest end full frame camera. DSLR camera. I bought it to just kind of try full frame, and it had it had the same sensor as one of their more expensive models, and the more expensive models were a lot heavier, a lot bulkier, and I wanted something kind of smaller and lighter. This is a mirrorless camera, so I was able to get a really light body for not a lot of money when I bought this camera about 5-6 years ago to try it out. So anyway, that's that, and that's the final shot. So even though I really like the rosette and I like the Leo triplet, stuff like this blows my mind too. I just think this is, I don't know. I'm still drawn to what you can do. This is a camera, a lens, an unmodified camera, a wide angle lens and a fixed tripod and something to press the shutter so I don't have to stand there and do it.
In the hands
Very
of
nice,
somebody
Gary.
that's a maestro.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So Denise, you were talking about the artsy side of things. That even with the rosette, if you look at that, I'll spend an hour just finessing the colors and finessing the sort of so that the data doesn't get like chopped off on the top, chopped off in the bottom, so you can see all that really fine detail. And that's I took a lesson. I didn't take a lesson. I mean, I read an article one time about what NASA did when they put together the original Hubble team for putting out these images. NASA had a big public relations issue because they spent hundreds of billions of dollars on this thing. They put it up, it didn't work. It was out of focus, and then they sent the shuttle up again and they fixed it. And then all of a sudden it's like, how do we get citizens to buy into what we're doing here? And like, this is to make them think that maybe this is worth it. And I do think it's worth it. That's not a statement in that direction, but they said to process these images, we're going to put together a technical person and we're going to put together an artist. And we're going to let them work as a team. So for every image, they had a person who knew all the tools and a person who had an eye for it and said, we're going to do this and we're going to put out some really pretty stuff and suck people in. And it worked. You look at the pillars of creation from the early M16 image that the Hubble did. It was groundbreaking. it's in false color, so who knows what the colors mean other than kind of like what I explained here in terms of the overlap and the mapping. And part of it is to make it look nice. It also is to bring out detail. One thing I'm learning playing with the narrowband stuff is that by tweaking the color mapping very slightly, you can really improve the contrast, because in black and white, you can see contrast really well. But what I'm finding out is that the color is actually adding another dimension to that contrast. Because in addition to tonal contrast, there's also color contrast. And like in that version, the first version I did with less data, and then the second version, those browns came out and those orangish hues came out. I actually accentuated those a little more because I could see more detail. If I zoomed way in and I played with that a little bit, I'm talking subtle, very, very subtle tweaks, you could see more detail. If you went too far, the detail went away. And what I'm finding is that other side of it, the left brain, right brain, when you get both sides working together, I think it goes a long way towards pulling out whatever you can without overdoing it, and as John says, over baking it or overcooking it.
Deep fried, overcooked.
Overcooked. So anyway, thank you, everyone.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Any questions on the processing or the techniques? I don't want to get, we don't want to go into too much necessarily, but
On the I guess the rosette in the SHO, did you shoot illuminance or just those 3 filters?
just those 3.
Okay.
Yeah, just those 3.
But the Leo triplet, you had LRGB and HA?
The Leo triplet was just RGB and HA.
Oh, just RGB and HA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, last month, I'm not sure. Oh, I actually think it was at the end after a lot of people had dropped off. I had shown the M81, M82. I can do that again real quick. I have it right here.
And you're shooting this wideband in your backyard, right?
Yeah, this is wideband.
Wideband, yeah. That's wild. That's difficult.
Yeah, without okay, so now do you see a folder with a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm going to
Correct.
close it?
Yep.
Okay, good. Now I'm on I believe the screen that I want to share to. So this was the I'll show it in a second. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Went
It
away.
just disappeared. I think when you maximize it, it blows out.
It just went away?
Yeah.
When you maximized it.
I didn't maximize it this time. I
No.
just moved it to the desktop that it was sharing. Now can you see it?
Now
Yes.
it's back.
Oh, you know what it is? I moved the Zoom header thing out of the way. That must be changing the desktop.
Oh.
In the past, it didn't do that. I'm going to move it back here. Let's see
I
if
hate
it
software
works.
updates. I never update.
Did it go away?
It disappeared.
Okay, so that isn't that. Okay,
Yeah.
so now you can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Alex, this is LRGBHA.
Okay.
So this has the luminance channel added in, which is why a lot of that is nice and bright. I did 3 versions of this. That was with less of the luminance channel brought in. So this is a less of a percentage of the luminance, the same
Like-
amount of data.
Like
just
the
I can
layers in
dial it.
Photoshop or something?
No, in PixInsight.
No, but they're like layers and
They're not. It's not sort of. There's a thing called a pixel math,
okay.
which is sort of a little equation editor that lets you take your different channels and you can add a bigger percentage or a smaller percentage in. So that's how this is done. It would be similar to layers, and then you're dialing the sort of the opacity value in Photoshop.
Hmm.
So this was with less of the luminance channel brought in. And I like this too. This was the second version I did. The one that I showed before was the first version. Because I like that it shows a little more of that structure compared to that. But I liked that this one I liked because there's a little more blue. The color balance came out a little bit. I liked the little bit additional blue in that. And this one was the best one overall. This one had the best of both worlds, which was the first attempt. I did it 3 times and I went back to the first one. I wound up liking the first one best because it was kind of a balance between the other ones. It had nice blue, nice hydrogen alpha. The luminance didn't overpower the core of the galaxy, so the spiral arm still came out and had nice detail. I also liked this little NGC galaxy. I like that the HA in that and the dust bands, you can see little dust lines in the HA in that. It came out best on this version with the values that I used to blend the hydrogen alpha and blend the luminance into the RGB data. And M82 came out the best out of these 3 in this first version. Now keep in mind, this is a rich field telescope. This is an 85 millimeter refractor, f5.6. This is not, like an SCT or something with a long focal length. I'm anxious to try putting this mono setup on my C9.25 and like really shooting that. Shooting that in high resolution, LRGB or just RGB H alpha, and then doing that. But I haven't tried that yet. I'm not positive the focuser can handle the weight. Especially a lot of, if it's pointing lower, if it's an object lower in the sky, it's less of a problem than when it's pointing overhead with the focusers. So, but I will give it a try and then report back.
I'm amazed how you can zoom in and not lose detail. That's fascinating. It's a full frame. I mean, what was the camera on that?
This is an ASI, one of the ZWO ASI 2600.
Oh, so it's full frame.
It's no
No,
APS-C.
APS.
Oh, it's crop.
APS-C. Same as Denise.
APS-C. It's a monochrome camera with an external filter wheel. So that's
Right.
why, every pixel, as I mentioned last time, every pixel counts.
Yeah, very sharp. Do you bin your color at all?
No,
Okay, so you shoot 1 by 1 on everything.
this is 1 by 1. No drizzle, no drizzle processing. What? What's that? What's that,
His
Doug?
focuser, Doug's focuser? I don't know. You're muted, Doug. You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
That was my focuser. It doesn't seem to have any problem with the weight.
No. Well, I've had problems before with my SCT focuser, and I actually upgraded it to a higher tension, to a higher capacity model quite a while ago. But and it's worked with my 2600 MC, but the filter wheel adds a whole other, whatever, 12 ounces or something like that, probably. That's probably not quite a pound, but it's not insignificant. So if it's on the edge, I might have some creep problem. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that was my mono discovery. My filter wheel rotates if I wanted to. I was doing all my flats at the end of an imaging session, and I discovered that my filter wheel would rotate it back to the right filter.
Was it offset?
Look, you can't expect perfection.
Were you? I've
It
heard
got
you.
back like if you went back to red or loom, you got there. You
I've
got
heard you
something.
have to rotate the same direction the whole night. If you like rotate the other direction, it gets off. Is that
No,
true?
I solved the problem by going, well, tonight's going to be a red night.
I saw you had a red hamburger
Yeah,
galaxy.
that's it. A red night, a green night, an HA night.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I haven't seen that, John. I rotate, I don't have it set to rotate in one direction only.
I saw that
I have
somewhere.
it set to go either way, whichever is the closest. And I
Okay.
don't do it in a certain order. Like if I need a certain
Yeah.
color one night, that's what I go to and that's what I shoot.
So there's no backlash or slop in it. It's good.
From what I've seen, that's
Okay.
with the ZWO, that little I bought the 36 millimeter. I bought the smaller filters.
Yeah.
Since I'm using a crop sensor, I didn't need the 2-inch
Yeah.
filters and 2-inch housing. I was mainly thinking of weight. I was trying to keep it as small as I could to not vignette the APS-C sensor without adding, extra weight.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever upgrade to a full frame. I don't, these things are so good. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll do it, but I doubt it. I really, really, really doubt it. It ripples into everything that I own. And APS-C is plenty big with 3.6 microns per pixel.
Right.
It's
And you
just
can
it's
do
fixed.
mosaics if you need. So
Yeah, exactly. Or just put it on a shorter focal length OTA.
yeah.
So I can always stick it on my camera lens. I've done that too, put an astronomical camera on the back of a camera lens. There's an adapter, I think it's like $50 or something from ZWO, and it works great. Then you can put a zoom lens on it, you can do whatever you want. So, any other questions?
I have one, Gary. Would a full frame camera work on your 85?
It would. So I have the 2-inch focuser on that, and 2 inches is roughly 51 millimeters diagonal, and a full frame is about 40 is well full frame's 36 millimeters on a diagonal, and they typically recommend 42 minimum in terms of the actual opening in terms of like whatever threaded adapters, but a lot of times it's more like 48 or it's more like 50, 52 or 54. I forget what it is, what the other standard size is. So it would theoretically work. But I doubt that, like, since I've got the astronomical cameras 2 years ago, I can't see me putting my DSLR on the back of it, even though I have a full frame DSLR on the back of my telescope when these cameras are just so much better, the cooled cameras. And I doubt I'd ever buy a full frame, a dedicated astronomical camera when I can get results like this with something like what I'm using. Yeah.
Thanks, that's helpful. It's something I've noodled a little bit, but I'm still trying to find time to use what I've got.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I in the past, I mean, I would put my DSLR on the back of my telescope. I did that all the time. I mean, for 25 years before I bought an astronomical camera 2.5 years ago. And I loved it. It was what I had available, and it worked great. But I only shot with I mean, besides film days, when I used to do it in the film days, that was full frame because it was 35 millimeter film, and that worked. I had my TV 101 back then, my Teleview 4-inch refractor. The older ones had a 2-inch focuser, and which mine was an older one, so it did. And I put my film DSLR on that, and got, very good images, like no noticeable vignetting, stuff like that. So that would be the closest comparison. My DSLRs, until recently, till I bought this Canon RP about 4 or 5 years ago. I guess it's more like 5 or 6 now. I only had crop sensors on my DSLRs. So then it was never an issue. Vignetting and stuff was not an issue. I do shoot flats. I always shoot flats. So that would take care of that anyway. Unless it's cutting off the field because it's just too big a sensor or too small an opening.
Have y'all seen the automated flat light that attaches to your telescope and flips down over the objective?
I saw a guy at Cherry Springs before we went over to the Big Dipper Lodge. There was a guy set up next to me that had him. He had it on all of his little refractors. Actually, he had a big one on he had I think an 8-inch Edge, one of the Celestron Edge HD telescopes, like what Lou had or has. He had a big one on that, but I haven't done that. I bought a cheapy tracing light panel, a little LED light panel on Amazon for $22, I think it was. And it fits, it won't cover my C11, but it will cover my C9 1/4. And then I just stick that on top of my TV85 too. I use it for everything. I use one of those little 5-volt, like a little battery pack, those little power cells that you use to charge your phone if you're traveling or something.
Yeah.
I just use that. I plug it into that, and I point the telescope up, stick it on top, put a dark blanket over it in case, there's any stray light coming in or going out, and there's somebody next to me and it's at night. And then just do my flats, and then I'm done.
Yeah, I use a t-shirt that I no longer wanted.
Yeah.
That's what. Oh, but John, that's what I wanted. How do you get away? How do you get away without shooting flats? Tell us.
I shoot them now.
You shoot. Oh, I thought you had like some.
I do
come
what
over
Gary
to
does.
the dark side.
I do what Gary does. But I feel like for you can get away without them for very short exposures.
Mhm.
And I actually needed them less with the narrow band, I feel like. I'm not like Tom, who just keeps everything impeccably clean. He's like, oh, I just don't have any dust.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Good
Hey, you
luck.
shouldn't have dust.
I'm always like, how do you do that?
I never open the camera up unless it's pointing straight down.
Yeah.
I always have it, every time I open and close, it's always down. And I just put in the adapters or whatever and then mount to the scope. And when it comes off, I immediately keep it upside down and I cap it that way and everything. And it never points upward.
So Tom,
Oh, come on,
you never
guys.
take pictures of mountaintops either, right?
No,
I gave up. I gave up, Tom. I just peel the cap off the top of the camera and say, come on in, guys.
Yeah, right.
Come on in, welcome in.
Make yourself at home.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't have dust, there is vignetting.
Well, I have
The optical system.
the cameras I'm using are so small chips.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't have
yeah.
vignetting here because I'm in a small format,
Yeah, that makes a difference. Yeah, and I'm talking about like APS-C size.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
find that the flats, I mean, in terms of the vignetting, if with the larger sensors that a lot of the cameras that we're using, it just makes processing so much easier rather than dealing with that later on. It's a pain in the butt to get rid of it later on, after the fact if you have vignetting. You can make, artificial flats and do that and or just crop the images. But if you want to get the whole thing, it's out of the calibration frames, it's the most pain in the butt to do. Bias are really easy. Darks are really easy. They just take time, but do it while you're sleeping or do it the next day or something. The flats are a pain in the butt compared to those. But I find it still well worth it because it makes the processing so much easier if you have good calibrated, relatively flat images. Then the only thing you're dealing with is like gradients, sky gradients. And that correction mechanism for sky gradients is basically it's a subtractive. You are subtracting that that information. And you know, the same with like certain types of flat calibration is some of it's multiplicative, some of it's subtractive. And this would be more, you know, I think vignetting is actually a multiplicative effect, not a subtractive effect. I'm not positive with that. It might be subtractive. I'd have to check that. Take that with a grain of salt. But I found that it's just much easier to process afterwards.
I'll tell you, I started shooting my flats with Nina, and I find it so much easier than when I used to use Maxim. You know, Nina has this flat wizard, and you know, once you get it set up for the exposure it likes, which really doesn't take long, boom, it just does everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Nina got me shooting flats. Yes, Doug. Even I shoot flats.
Sandy, are you using Nina with that wizard?
Another idol
Yes.
gets smashed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to torture myself with these using new software that I never fully understand. So, and you know, I may have mentioned it in previous things. I have tons of, you know, raw data from many years going down to Chieflet. It's just that I got to get my ass in gear and, you know, try to do some processing in PixInsight. But I will eventually. I may even actually have an image to show you guys one day.
What are you using for light sources? Because I always heard that's the hardest part of flats, getting something that's easy and really is flat.
Well, down in Chiefland, my buddy who I shared the scope with, he bought that spike field.
Spike a
And-
flat.
Right. But they, you know, it's fine for the 11-inch I use down there. And but I did find it has an adjustable light setting. But what I did find with using the Nina thing, I had to put I bought on Amazon you know, darkening things. I'm drawing a blank on what you actually would call them, but you know, different shades of like a neutral density gels to put over that. And so when I find the right one, and then I can duplicate the thing, it works pretty well. Now for my 14 up here at home, you know, they don't. First of all, that spike thing doesn't make it bigger than that one size. And I wasn't going to spend like $400 to $600 on something for a 14-inch. So it was either make one myself, which some of my buddies have done, and they had great success with, you know, putting these LED strips in there and you know, some white plexiglass. But like Gary, I bought one of the things off Amazon, and I'm using that with the neutral density gels, and hopefully that's going to work. But I'm still, pardon my French, sticking around with trying to get the 14, you know, aligned. And, you know, polar aligned and all that stuff. So that's something actually, you know, when the weather gets a little better, if you guys ever want to come out and see our observatory setup out here, you know, we can make a little field trip out of it. You know, I think you would just find it interesting.
Where's out here?
Where is here?
Okay, well, I live in Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And Mount Gretna is where my buddy has you know, property where we have our observatories. So it's exit 266 off the turnpike, the Lancaster Lebanon exit, and the observatory from the turnpike entrance there is only, you know, maybe 15 minutes at most. It's not bad considering, you know, you got Lancaster to the south, you know, Lebanon to the north. It's kind of like a dark spot. So, but you know, it's better than my backyard with all my neighbors' lights.
What's the name of this place again, Sandy?
Well,
Luddite, Pennsylvania?
Lebanon.
Okay.
Like in the disgusting bologna that's made in
Okay,
Lebanon.
Lebanon. Okay.
I'll see
Yeah,
if
well-
this comes through. Here's I'm going to put a link to the panel. I just looked it up. I looked up my order history on Amazon, and it's actually $15.99. It came down from 1999 to 1599. I bought it back in May 13th, 2022, and it works well.
Yeah,
Gonna
I've
go
been
up
using
because
my
of the tarot.
iPad, but my iPad works fine for my refractor, but it's
Yeah.
not big enough for my 8-inch Snickhouse.
Yeah, and
So
that's why I bought this. I still do sometimes use my iPad, just set to a white screen for my 85, but it didn't work on my 9 1/4, so that's why I got this, Wayne.
yeah,
Um, in fact, this one, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, this one is fine. Yeah, I think it's 9. I think it just makes it.
One of the things I did was I got this white glass that they use, I guess, for privacy for bathrooms, and I bought a piece of that, a white piece of plexiglass, and I just put that over the telescope. I have a Rasa 11, and and because it's a pretty big aperture, and I just use that to diffuse light from the sky and just take sky flats with that, and that seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but
yeah. That's a
that's
good
worth.
technique too. Yeah. With my 9 1/4, I do tend to use sky flats more than the panel, like you're talking about.
When you
It's
guys
just
do sky
easier.
flats, are you doing those like first in the morning, or just after the sun goes down, or
Usually it's 30 minutes after sunset. And
sunset?
the reason is you wouldn't believe it, but soon after that, like 45 minutes after sunset, the sky is really bright, but your CCD camera or your CMOS camera is picking up stars at that point, which is,
Mm.
so usually the rule of thumb is 30 minutes past sunset. The sky is dark enough, but yet light enough that the stars can't shine through.
And where are you pointing the scope?
Um, usually, usually it's zenith or perhaps a little bit east of zenith.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess there's some magic rules for it, but you can usually see it, Brett. And when you're kind of scanning it, you'll see a point like Joe's talking about just past west of zenith where it starts to look fairly flat. And keep in mind, you're imaging a swath of sky that's
Yeah.
teeny, tiny, tiny.
When I was out on this last trip, the Pegasus Flatmaster panel I have quit working, and I had a white T-shirt and was just fortunately I had a big old rubber band and strapped it over it, and I was just trying different times after sun went down and just before the sun got up, and then just took a series of those and then picked the one that looked the best, and that's what I used when I started to process this. But I didn't really have a rule of thumb. I just took a whole bunch of them and took a look to see what I got.
Yeah. When you're saying you took the one that looked the best, are you using a single image or are you averaging?
No, I would do 30
Yeah,
for
yeah.
each channel. And then I'd wait another 10, 15 minutes and it maybe point someplace else in the sky and I'd do them again.
Yeah, I get it.
Good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
I try to look at the histogram and get it where the maximum is like between 40 and 60%. So I'm not near any edge, and that
Yeah.
seems to work
Yeah,
well.
that's what I've been seeing in some videos with somewhere between 35 and 50%. They also I've seen is that they want John and I talked about this a while back. They want the exposures to be it's preferred to have them be like 2 to 5 seconds or longer, but
Yeah.
I'm not having much luck getting exposures that long, at least when I was doing those sky flats.
Yeah. If you read Cloudy Nights in the past, people have had trouble when the exposures are too short. And
Yeah.
it must be scanning or readout or something, but they have trouble getting the whole frame illuminated the way it should be. I remember that from a few years back. There was a big discussion on Cloudy Nights about that. So you know, they want the exposure to be fairly short, but not too short, you know? But
Yeah, with the that flat panel that I have, if the exposures are too short, you can actually start to see horizontal white and black lines across, which I believe is what you're talking about, Joe, is that, it's like, forget what fraction of a second. And I just think that's probably just the cycling of the flat panel that it's
Yeah.
captured.
They probably have PWM on the LEDs. So even these lights are blinking very fast, but our eyes can't see that. So
Yeah,
yeah, if your sub's too short, it's like the strobe light effect, basically.
right.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any new images or anything they want to discuss?
I have a bunch that I forced myself to try to push through that I'm not too happy with a lot of them, but it was the first pass.
I'd love to see some. You
Yeah,
went
yeah.
on some great trips. I mean, you caught some fish. Show them off. That's great. Get your photon.
Thanks for the link, Gary. Mine will be here tomorrow.
Oh, you're welcome. And what size scope are you using it on?
Just my
The-
85.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oops.
The only trick with it, Stan, I have to flip it over to the back sometimes
Okay.
if I'm doing like a luminance.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing like RGB stuff or narrowband stuff, then I'll use the front of the panel because the back of
Okay.
the panel is just dimmer.
Okay.
It's got a built-in gel like Sandy got. It's a
I
piece of
think the
cardboard.
panel I linked I think it's black on the back.
Oh, really? It'll
Yeah,
it'll still
you don't
shine
want to
through.
flip it.
Oh, really?
There is an intensity control though.
I keep pressing Zoom, guys. I keep getting kicked out. So I'll try again.
It says you're sharing a screen, but I don't see it.
Yeah, it shows the screen showing,
Oh,
and
there.
Oh, there it
Wait,
is.
we see it.
Oh,
California. Oh, Zoom crashed.
yeah, see that? Can you still see it?
Just slide that
Yeah,
error off the screen and ignore it.
There you
yeah.
go.
It's working.
Perfect.
no, California.
Love software.
Right. So this trip was to Gila, New Mexico, dark sky site. You can get an idea where it was here. There's Albuquerque and Phoenix over here in Tucson. And I'm playing at a place called the Casitas de Hia guest houses that tailor or focus on astronomers. Here at this place, you zoom in, there's 6 of these little guest houses on this property out in the middle of nowhere. We were right here in this guest house here. There's one of the 6. And then up here about 400 yards away, I'll find it here in a minute. I can't find them now. There's six flat cement pads that had electric to them that you could set up at and image from. I can't find them now. They disappeared. But at any rate, so that's where I was for these images. And this was the California, and that was with the Red Cat 61. It's a 61 aperture 6.8, and that's with the 2600 MC Pro. I forget how many exposure. Everything I took at was at 2 minutes, and that was actually that was 350 2-minute exposure. So I did quite a few of those.
Wow.
And this was processed in PixInsight. This kind of down here, I don't know if I just kind of overcooked it because this looks kind of fake to me. I don't know what the other word would be for it.
Yeah, it looks like the black point might be too high.
Okay.
You might have your black point too high because there's a real sharp, cutoff kind of between the nebulosity and the background.
Right. Right. Yeah, I guess maybe because I guess obsessed about trying to get the background real black, which it probably shouldn't be
It's
worried
a
about.
style thing. I think Steve Haas would agree with you. He likes his dark.
Okay.
Everyone's got their own style. Me and Gary, we like to see some noise. It's all whatever you like.
This is Leo triplet.
Very nice.
Beautiful. This would have been a more zoomed in telescope, right?
This is the 103.
Okay.
That's a 6.8. And that's the 2600 mono. And it's this is only 30 2-minute red, green, blue. And I also shot luminance, but I didn't put the luminance in this yet. I just ran through these this afternoon.
So what's your total exposure here about?
It's 1 hour per channel, so 3 hours.
So 3 hours, okay.
Yeah.
Great. You're getting a little of that tidal tail off the top of the hamburger there. It's real faint, but in the
Yeah.
top right
Right, yeah,
corner
right
there.
here, right,
Yeah.
right up here. You can see that, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. You're in a good dark spot. There's some nice quasars around there too.
So, um, I was going to shoot more, just shoot some luminance here at home, or just add some more to this. That doesn't hurt to shoot that and just see what I get, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
because you're not, I mean, you're not as dark as New Mexico, but you got decent skies and you know, if you're doing it on when the moon's not out, you should get good, you know, usable data with that same setup.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm guessing an hour at the dark sky site is like 4 to 6 hours here. I don't know for
Mm.
sure, but
Yeah, it's about 2.5 times per magnitude, right? So
Wow.
so if you're like 2 magnitudes brighter, then you know you'd have 2.5 squared. So whatever that is, a 7.5 or whatever that is,
yeah.
um, times more exposure for the same that's the same signal to noise ratio though.
Yeah.
The other rule of thumb that I heard, and I haven't actually confirmed it with experimentation, is that if you're shooting luminance, you want to basically have three, like let's say you're doing an hour each of RGB, you'd want to have 3 hours of luminance to add to that. So the luminance should be the total amount of time of your other channels, of like your RGB channels, because they're really only, those RGB channels are only contributing a small amount, right? Because they're each just contributing whatever their band is
Right.
worth of data. So I don't know if that, I haven't confirmed it, but I've heard that from, you know, experts like the Adam Block kind of people and those various gurus in this area.
So one of the things that I learned as I continue to learn, so that the skies looked clear, but as I found out after getting home and just running through and stacking these images, that there were a bunch of subs on different nights that there was like this faint mist or these light clouds that kept passing over. And when I went through and processed many of these the first time, they just almost looked like out of focus or was a little fuzzy. And I went back and looked at each one of the individual subs, which I did not do. I just assumed that, you know, the sky looked clear. I would just go ahead and stack them and let her rip. So I had to go through and I probably on certain nights probably discarded about 25% of them.
Are you manually removing them?
Yeah.
I just stack them all.
Yeah. Well, so
You're still getting data.
okay.
That's why it's weighted batch pre-processing.
Yeah.
It should detect that there's like a more brightness on that particular frame and weight it less. At least that's my understanding. I don't know if that's
seems
true,
to
Gary.
work.
I don't know.
That seems to work, John. I did an experiment with that with these last few objects because I shot on nights where clouds were coming through, and there were some that were, you know, like it's a big thick cloud and I can't see anything. I pulled those out, but ones that I would normally pull out by manually selecting and, you know, blinking them, I left in. And it seemed to do a good job with it. It seemed to handle it.
Hmm.
the weighted batch preprocessing. So if anything is, my rule now is if anything is like a obvious star trails, like the gust of wind bumped the scope or something like badly, I'll pull those out, or if there's branches in the picture or big clouds. But one of the things that I tried also was sometimes there's when you're looking at when you're selecting your subs and you're looking at how round your stars are, sometimes you'll see it's just a tiny bit. It looks like something just tapped the scope ever so slightly. And I was listening to this YouTube video, and this person was saying, don't get rid of those either, because when you look at what's going on, stars are so, and it's usually just the brighter stars. Like if I just see a couple bright stars that have a little irregularity to them, but the smaller stars don't, I've been leaving those in because in the past I used to think, well, if the stars have moved, then the nebulosity has moved too, and everything's blurred that way. But that's not really true, because stars, those bright stars are, thousands of times or many, many hundreds of times brighter than that nebulosity. And a tiny movement in that will get picked up by the camera. But a tiny movement, the same movement in the nebulosity, doesn't get picked up by the camera the same way, because it's just not bright enough to, throw photons into those wells. So even though some of the bright stars might look a little eccentric, the nebulosity probably isn't. Now, if everything's moving, like something really bumped it, or, like one time my tracking, I had something in the way, my focus motor hit like one of my polar alignment adjustment knobs, because I had rotated the scope and I kind of didn't put it through the full swing to see if it was clear. Obviously, they get thrown out because now you just have trailing stars. So you might want to loosen up the rigidity in which you screen the subs.
So I'm going to get to Thor's helmet in a minute. So with Thor's helmet, well, I can bring that up now.
Ooh.
The first time I did this, with all the subs, some of these stars were kind of like, it's not like a halo. They just had this, just like this. They were larger, and they had like this, almost like a mist around them. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for.
You wouldn't be getting dew out there.
It was dry as could be. I mean, we got cold at night, but it was dry, and I actually I did have to do heat. Now I can't remember if I did or didn't. But it was really dry, and the dew point, I kept checking the dew point. I wasn't near the dew point in temperature, but it might have been.
Dew can do that.
Dew can do
Filters
that.
can do that also. You
Oh
can
yeah,
get
it's
that
true.
What could?
filters. Sometimes, depending on the type of filter you're using, you can get that kind of haze around the star.
Like a halo.
Yeah. It wasn't on all of them though. I mean, and these are okay filters. These are Optilong. I don't even know what I think they're like 7 nanometer for the SHO, and it's the RGB and L. I have a set of Antlias like Gary has it. I have it in another scope. I haven't really done too much with that yet. But that's that one. And that's just SHO. And then
Can you zoom in on Thor's helmet?
what's
Oh
that?
my
Oh,
God. You're so focused on what's wrong. You have a lot of great pictures.
okay.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
I just have to
that's
say that up
stunning.
front.
That's a
That's so
really
cool.
shot.
That's great.
What scope was that?
That's the Ascar. That's the 103 native focal length of 700 millimeters.
So same one you used on the triplet.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. I
Yeah,
do
and
have
that's
data entry.
Right, that was shot from New Mexico.
yes.
Yeah, that's a pretty low declination. Part of what
Yeah.
you might have been seeing, I wonder, I'm wondering if it might just be seeing conditions, because that's really low. I mean, you're about 10 degrees lower than I guess we are here, but when
Yeah.
you shot that, but it's still pretty low in the sky. Um,
So Joe,
great, great
what are the
detail though.
issues of being low?
Well, I mean, the seeing's not as good, and it may cause the star images to look a little bit, blurry. Um,
Is this low enough to cause like a atmospheric refraction, you think, or is it? I'm not sure what the altitude is. This is fairly low anyway, right?
The altitude you're talking about where the
the
elevation or
declination, the
the ele-
declination is like minus, isn't it like minus, like 25, minus 30? It's really, I think, pretty
yeah,
low in the sky.
it
I
is
shot it a couple years ago, and
right.
man, it was one of the most southerly shots I ever took.
Hmm.
That's
Do you
beautiful, though.
mean the subject is low
Yeah, the
or,
subject is pretty far south.
okay, not
Yeah.
that the location is too
Well,
low?
he would have the advantage from New Mexico. I'm guessing his latitude there is probably around like about 32 degrees,
Well,
something
that's
like
about,
that.
you're right, Joe. It's just about 32. Yeah, it was about
Yeah,
10 degrees
yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
always
that's a
wanted to
good
go to
thing.
that Gila. I always wanted to go to that place. I read about it and the piers they have and the little
Yeah,
casitas, and
yeah.
there's an astronomy village, I guess about 20 miles south of that, New Mexico Astronomy Village. And Tom Clark, who used to be a chiefland, moved out there, and there was a failed housing development there. Um, and he was really trying to get this New Mexico Astronomy Village going because he said he couldn't stand the humidity at Chiefland, and there might have been other issues as well. I really don't know, but several people moved there. Was it Route 29 or whatever it is?
Mm.
Um, from Bayard to Silver City, which I
So
guess Silver City would be just a couple
Silver
miles from you.
Silver City
Um,
was southeast by about, it was about a 50-minute drive.
okay, yeah, further than I thought, but yeah, that's a great area. And I always wanted to go to that where you were, that little development. I'd read about it and I never got out there, but that's very cool.
Yeah,
I think the
it's run by
detail on
an
that
older
is
couple.
great.
I'm sorry.
I think the detail is great.
Yeah,
Oh, thanks.
yeah. And this is SHO.
Yeah, these are all 2 minute. Sulfur's 50, hydrogen alpha is 160, and oxygen's 189. So what's that work up to be? It's about 6, 7, 8, 9 hours.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
There's not much sulfur in this. There's a lot of oxygen.
You need to bring that out at Halloween,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool looking.
You have
Thank
some
you.
more stuff too, you said?
This was
Oh,
one of the recommendations that John and Gary
Markarian's
had.
chain.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah, you
I
wanted
like that.
galaxies in a wide field. There you go.
I got some of the,
Oh,
and
look at that.
this wasn't
Keep
a lot
going
of,
in there. It's you got the cracks in that thing.
Yeah,
It-
the eyes look great.
the eye has you have the dark lanes in there. That's great.
Yeah.
and that's the color camera. And that's 100 and so 200 minutes. 200 minutes.
You got a lot of little galaxies in there too, those little PGC things.
Well, that leads me to this. I don't even know what I was shooting here, Gary. This was what you suggested. This is the Perseus A area.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
Perseus A. Yeah,
I
there's
shot
like a
that. It's
billion
right there in the middle.
galaxies in there.
And there it is, plate solved. There's all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you turn on the PGC
Oh, okay.
objects, it'll be all blue. You won't even be able to see the stars.
Yeah.
see it.
There's
It's
so many in
lousy.
there. Yeah, look how dense that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually so Joe Lamb gets the ultimate credit for this because I was at Frank's one night and he said he was shooting Perseus A. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I haven't shot that. And I wound up shooting it. And that little Joe Lamb voice on my shoulder was what I was hearing when I was telling you, when you were saying you wanted something wide field that had a ton of galaxies. I heard Joe's little on my shoulder saying, Perseus A, Perseus A. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you,
You're
Joe.
welcome. You're welcome.
That's Pinwheel. That's
Hey,
Oh, nice.
how's our supernova doing? Is it still in there?
yeah.
Yeah, that's like been over a year.
That's just RGB, not about 65 of each. I shot luminance, but I didn't add luminance into that yet. But it wasn't a lot of luminance, going back to what you said earlier, Gary. I didn't realize that until I got back that I should be shooting more luminance than the other channels. But when I have time, I'll go back and add that in and see what it does. And then this is Tadpole, the Flaming Star.
Beautiful. With the
Oh,
red
That's
cap.
wow.
great.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. That's
Wow.
nice.
That's a whole bunch. That's both Arizona and New Mexico. Previous trip and this trip.
Wow.
That's 300, 600. That's almost 10 hours of data.
You got all
Still
that
going on with
background, all that background
it.
stuff.
Hey, if he's telling me low battery.
Yeah.
Hang it up, see if we can hang up on your friends.
Hi, Barb. Hey, Barb.
They're saying hi.
That's a great shot. That little asterism in the middle, it looks like a finger to me. I use that when I'm doing visual to like find my way around that part of Auriga, or however you say that. That's so cool.
That is really nice.
Yeah,
Really
nice
nice.
job. I like the way you brought up that kind of the core of the flaming star too. It really stands out nicely against the background.
I like to shoot this now than in mono, except after seeing what you did with this, Gary.
I don't know. I'd be pretty happy with.
There's not much oxygen in there, I don't think.
There isn't much.
This is a good treatment, honest, in my opinion.
Yeah, there really isn't much. That looks great. I love the browns in it with the getting that background, that flux stuff going on.
It's beautiful.
I have a I don't have Whirlpool up here. I did Whirlpool too, but I don't have that. That's enough for tonight.
That's great.
Thanks for letting me
Holy
share.
smokes.
Really
I think
nice.
you're doing great, Brett.
Thanks,
Totally.
Gary.
Totally.
That means a lot to me, Gary.
No, I mean it seriously. I think you're doing great. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
plus your enthusiasm. You know, you're definitely putting effort into figuring this out, going places, getting good data, and grinding away at it.
Thanks.
That's what it takes. I mean, you just have to spend time and kind of get to know the tools and know what the parameters are.
It's it's funny as you go along, Gary, like setting up at night at home here, set like maybe 2 scopes out, and lately when I go to set all that stuff out, I think, gee, this was kind of easy. You should do it enough. It doesn't. What seemed like it was taking me all night and was was stressful is kind of like, go bing, 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 and off you go. And I think it's the same with with processing. PixInsight, I didn't know anything about PixInsight when I started, and you watch all the YouTube videos and you're trying to understand how everything works. But the only way, in my view, that you get a handle of it, just to go in and start poking around. You just start playing with things and see what happens, what's the result of it, and then rewinding and trying something different.
Yeah. Have you I meant to ask you actually, you're still using the newer version of PixInsight, right? The 1.93 or something?
Is there two? Well, I don't. They just didn't they come out with the .3?
Yeah. I'm still on the old version. I didn't even convert over to that new core yet. Has it gotten stable?
It has, yeah, it has gotten stable, and I have not put on. I think it's the .3 that they just released a couple days ago.
Yeah, it was like 2 days ago. Yeah, I was ready to load it up. I thought I might be able to do it. I brought my laptop when we were visiting my daughter, but I never wound up taking it out for good reason. But I when I came home, I saw that a new version was released, and I thought, oh, good. I'm glad I didn't do that. I didn't have time to do that. I'll do
Right.
the new one. But then I thought I want to check with Brad to see if how stable it is, because I know when you first used it a couple 2-3 months ago, whenever it first came out, you were saying that it thought it was buggy.
It was locking up. I'm still on .2. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'm gonna race to put .3 on now that this is working pretty well.
And so you found dot 2 is stable?
I haven't had a problem with it. No, not recently, no. No, it seems pretty
Okay.
good.
I'll load it up then, because like some of the, like as again, I'm learning this narrowband stuff and learning the even the LRGB with the mono camera, and so I'll try to look up something on YouTube, and people are talking about, oh, you just drag this like these new features. It's sort of like, oh, I can't do that. I'll have to figure out some other way to do that. So there's been some incentive to like get off the dime and load it up and get used to it. Was there much learning curve difference between the previous versions, like the old core and this core?
No,
Okay,
no,
good,
no.
good.
Maybe
Excellent.
Gary, at a future meeting here, you could walk us through the spreadsheet that you shared with me.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, what Brett's talking about is we were talking about image scale in an email, and I had put together a spreadsheet, oh gosh, years ago. It was kind of a result of Vince Sheets talking to me about, what can you expect to see in the eyepiece. So I put together a spreadsheet that was like fields of view for my different OTAs for the eyepiece. And then I did a similar spreadsheet with image scale for, like, I would take a camera and that would be one worksheet in an Excel, series spreadsheet that's a series of worksheets. And then I would have my different OTAs in there, and it would calculate the image scale, the field of view, all that kind of stuff. And it became a really handy reference. So I sent that to Brett as a way to just kind of, maybe this would help clear some of the clouds in terms of how to think about image scale and when you're shooting these different objects in your different OTAs. Because if you have a single OTA, it's just whatever it is for that camera you're shooting. But when you start to move the same camera around the different optical setups, then having this other level of information matters in terms of setting your expectations properly. Are you grossly undersampling? Are you grossly oversampling? Where does it really fit compared to sort of the sweet spot for your seeing conditions and for those other factors that matter?
Yeah, I have a hard time understanding that.
I mean, the general way to think of it is the better the seeing, the more you can oversample without just wasting data and wasting time. Or like in other words, doing something with no real benefit.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd be happy to. If anyone else would be interested in that, I can pass it along. That was a simplified one, Brett. It was worse when I had reorganized it years ago.
I just dropped in a link. RC Astro, who does so much good stuff,
Yeah.
they have a tool, MTF Analyzer, which is you can kind of play with some widgets and it helps visualize some of that stuff that you're talking about, Gary. I've
Yeah,
always
it's
wondered
very,
about
very
it.
handy.
As an engineer, I'm always thinking about the Nyquist frequency for sampling, but we're in a two-dimensional space. Well, you know what I live in a two-dimensional world, but how those things apply, I never got into all the math, but it you can really geek out on that stuff if you want to.
Yeah, but this link is a good one. I'll attest to that. I've spent time with that, and I did screenshots for my different setups
Yeah.
in different scene conditions. It's actually it's kind of fun to play with, this RC Astro.
Yeah. Yeah.
The link I just said I found this and it's that workflows, the examples they have in that link is what I loosely followed for this last round of processing that I did.
Oh. Oh, this is cool. I never saw that. Whoa. It's like block diagrams galore.
Right, and you see there's a key at the bottom. There's an icons legend at the bottom, and then there's also some settings for the different RC Astro products. It doesn't have, it's not Noise X3, I don't think. But those are you know, you would change some of those values anyway. Oh, it is version 3. Yeah. No, yeah, it is.
Whoa. I'll have to take a look at this. It's probably nothing like what I'm doing, but that's how you learn.
Some of it, it wasn't. Some of the steps didn't seem consistent with to what they had it labeled with. Like some of the icons and what the process names were didn't line up with what the representative icon legend showed. But I just used them loosely and tweak it as I went along and then skip a step here or there if I didn't think it was appropriate or I didn't know how to use the tool.
Yeah, thanks. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm curious to take a look. It looks complicated initially, but
When you see them all on one page, that's a lot of workflows. Yeah.
yeah.
If you click on any one of the images, you go to the detail for just that page.
Yeah.
The first one's a one-shot color image. And if you walk through that, that's pretty straightforward. It's
That's nice, and they're all PNG images, so you can just do a right click, save as.
right. Yep. Yeah, I have them all saved. I have mine printed out because I need to print everything out.
Thanks for doing that. It's helpful.
If you look at the one-shot color, when they brings the images back in with the screen stars with this cosmic photons screen star. I mean, I don't use that to combine the stars back in, but the steps are the same.
Huh.
Okay, cool.
I just learned something. I feel it looks like for an LRGB, they don't use the stars from the luminance at all.
Yeah.
I can learn a lot, I think. I don't use PixInsight, but I can still the workflows are roughly that's interesting. I struggled with LRGB because I was doing it wrong, I think. So maybe I'll have to give it a go again.
Where are you guys seeing this stuff?
Oh, I sent the link, Sandy, in the chat. You click on that URL I just sent.
Scroll down to
Oh, okay. That last one. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
it's Astro
Yeah,
CCD.
got it.
Really instructive.
I was a link behind. Start my life a day late and a dollar short.
So I think we have about 10 minutes left. Does anyone else have any photos you want to share or anything's going on? I know there's some.
I have an update on that recurring nova in Corona Borealis, T Core
Yeah,
B.
yeah.
Yeah.
So bottom line up front, it hasn't blown up yet. For those, I mean, this is like every 86 years, it blows up from like magnitude 10 up to magnitude 2. And, they said, oh, last year within 6 weeks. And well, that was last year and it still hasn't blown. I got a sea star for Christmas. And can I share, John?
Yeah, go for it. Should be a green up arrow in the bottom.
No,
Yeah, you got it.
I want to make sure I pick the right
Aye.
monitor. So I got a sea star for Christmas, and what was it, Monday night of last week, it got clear, and I put it out for a little while. And then last night, it got clear for a while, so I put it out for a little while. luckily there's a IC 4587 that's like right here somewhere. So that's in the C-Star catalog, so you can just go to it. As opposed to trying to figure out the RA.
That's close to the where the supernova is supposed to happen.
Yeah, so this orange dot, I'll zoom in a second. That's T Core B. That's this one right here, has an orange color.
Yeah.
And what the helps of these little double stars here and these double stars here are kind of like pointers that sort of go right at it. And I pulled up a chart from the AAVSO. So like this guy over here is 9.8. This is 11.2, and this is 10.6. So this, I measured it last week. I haven't had a chance to run this through the program to get the exact magnitude. This is still like 9.5. So it's been going up and down between like 10.5 and 9.5. So it hasn't blown. Goes when it goes nova, it could go as high as 2. So there's nothing in this image even close.
Right.
So it'll be, I don't know, what would that be, naked eye visible, I guess, even in our
Mhm.
our
Yeah.
skies. Yeah.
Like
So
Polaris.
pardon me? Polaris?
It'll be like
Yeah.
Polaris.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's fun to keep an eye on it. The weather's making it kind of tough. I mean, we're all going to read about it. The thing is though, that it'll go from like this state to like maximum in like 6 or 8 hours, and then it'll take a couple of weeks to taper off. And everybody's trying to catch it on the way up. I'm not. I just thought I would plop it out. But the thing that got me was I took the Sea Star, I stuck it on a patio table on my deck. I turned it on. It came back inside. Got on my iPad and went to this target, had it do its little magic calibrating and focusing thing. And I said, this is like 7 minutes worth of images. And this is the JPEG it gives you right out of the camera, out of the C Star. You can also get the individual, I had it save the individual 10-second exposure, and it's shooting 10-second exposures. So I had it save those. And I'm going to play with those, when I have some time. But anyway, just, random
so cool.
field of view. It was the ease, it's like just plop, come inside where it's warm, shoot them, then go out and pull it in. And then you pull the pictures off, just cable it into your PC and you're done.
Very neat. Very cool.
Come on, isn't half the fun freezing your ass off? Come on, boys.
Oh, absolutely. And I've got that kind of rig too, but it's like, it was just too easy. But the other thing I did today was, it's the first time I ever played with Graxpert and Cyril.
Nice.
So ironically, I was sitting on the couch last night waiting for this field to come up above 30 degrees so I could get, some good photometry on it. And I figured I would try the Leo triplet, but it was like right by the moon. It was horrible. And then this was pretty far away. So I went over and took about 24 minutes of M101. And this is the JPEG after about 24 minutes right out of the C Star. So like I also saved the individual FITS files. And obviously it's nothing compared to the images we've seen tonight. But following one of the videos on YouTube from the guy who lives in Tokyo. Yeah, I can never not pronounce that. Yeah. So I brought it into I brought the files into Graxpert and did that, and then brought it into Cyril and cleaned it up in that, extracted the debayering. And then I did play with it in GIMP, but I didn't like the way it came out, so I just went back to the original one that came out of Cyril, and I wound up with that. Obviously, focus is soft and the stars are bloated, but for 24 minutes, that's
pretty good for a full moon, nearly full moon.
Yeah, and it was I was like very surprised. So
Star colors are really nice.
oh well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just plopped those out, and again, this was processing the JPEG that came out of the camera. You can also process the individual ones, and I did that this afternoon. But I like this one better. So anyway, that was my fooling around last night.
That's
Great.
fun. You got more data than me. I can't. Awesome.
So you
Yeah,
ran
I
that,
have an equipment question. For when you do deep sky imaging on multiple nights and you have to set up the equipment, uh, if you have the telescope like a refractor set up north and the RA axis vertical, you put the camera on so that the text is all upright. Should that give you the same angle on the target each time? Because I did two shots of 2 nights of the Leo triplet, and I ended up with a rotation between them, like maybe 30 degrees or so, and I ended up with some stacking issues around in the corners because of that. Uh, and I was just wondering what I did wrong.
what software are you using? Is it Nino
I'm
or
using
ASI?
the ASI Air to control it.
So,
And I just went to the same area, but for some reason I ended up with a rotation. And I would think with an equatorial mount, it should pretty much give me the same orientation.
Yeah, it should. It should. It shouldn't change unless you rotate either the camera in the OTA or the whole OTA with the camera. So if the camera orientation is the same from one night to the next, other than, whatever minor errors there are, just getting it to be exactly the same, it should be the same orientation unless something was rotated.
Okay, well then maybe I didn't align the camera accurately enough. Maybe I didn't get it straight enough.
A trick I've done, Wayne, is I at first I just cut a couple little like triangular points of that blue painter's tape, and just put like one on the focuser, one on the like whatever camera adapter or whatever extension tube you have or something.
Yeah.
That when I put it in, it's always the same. Then I have a little label printer that has a little more durable labels. I wound up printing those with just like if this is like if my finger is the tape, I just had some vertical lines. There's that character on the keyboard. I don't know if it's wherever it is, the one that's like the vertical bar above the backslash. I just put some of those on the label thing, and then I just cut it, and then put that on. So just something to make sure you're always putting it in the same way. Then if you want to intentionally offset it, you can even make a little scale, take a piece of tape and just rotate, like how many degrees you can measure the circumference of whatever,
Yeah.
whatever thing you're putting it on.
I also could have looked at the previous images and try to make sure the screen matched.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That would be another option that I didn't do. But I end up with these corners, and I'm used to the idea, well, you can crop the edges, but if there are big triangles on the corners, you lose too much of the image.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I ended up doing was did StarNet to get a starless image, and then use like a clone stamp tool to fill in those area corners that were erratic. And then when I put the stars back in, it looked okay. But that means those corners are not real reliable.
Yeah, it's not real data. Yeah, but still, if it worked. One thing, are you using the ASI Air, Wayne?
Yeah.
One
Yes.
trick that I learned recently with that, which I wish I had known like a year ago when I first started using it, was there's a thing called, how like when you have the little magnifying glass so that you can look up an object.
Right.
So if you have a certain, like there's a lot of times when I frame it, it's not on a particular object, it's on a group of objects. So what I would do, like if I went back a second night, I would look at what I shot the night before and then try to move it. Or I do like a screenshot on my iPad or my phone of like what it was the first night, and then I try to match it as close as possible. The trick that I learned is that there's a thing called a custom user objects. And if you go do that little like the magnifying glass, the search thing, I think there's a little icon next to it. If you touch that, it has some options. And one of them is set user object. And one of the options in the set user object is make the center of the object your current RA and deck.
Oh,
It
okay.
just
So,
populates it with the current RA and deck.
Yeah.
So whatever framing you have for that setup, you can just
Yeah.
save that exact point. And
that's
it's made life so much easier. Like that
that's
Rosette,
great. Well, with Leo triplet, what do you aim at? You don't want to aim
exactly.
at any one of the three galaxies.
Yeah.
You want to aim in the center.
Yeah, and what I showed tonight, I did that, I used that trick on every one of those, and it just took a whole 10, 15 minutes away of moving it a little. Oh, is that star in the right place? Oh, is this in the right? Now I just go to like and it just whatever your name, whatever when you first set it up, if you put a name in like your little auto run parameter, it'll populate that. So it's like mine says Leo triplet or something like that, because that's what I put in, Leo
Okay.
triplet.
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. It's a really
Okay.
I just stumbled upon it. It was just totally by accident.
That sounds like that would be helpful.
And I'm guessing the same thing is in the sea stars and because it's the same sort of software under the hood, I think, in terms of the ASI Air and the Sea Star, from what I've heard. I think Tom Alaska was telling me that.
I've used that. It works very similar.
Okay. So it's probably in there too. I don't remember what the icon looks like, Wayne, but it's right in that. It's in the upper right corner when you go to that.
I'll look into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that especially drove me nuts with the Leo triplet, because it automatically named it for the hamburger galaxy, the NGC thing,
Right.
and it wanted to, it was hard to figure out exactly where I wanted to aim in order to get those three galaxies in the right place.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this will bring it right back to the same spot.
Yeah.
I wish
Okay.
I
Well,
had
thanks
that
for
at Cherry
the.
Springs last year when I had the problem where when I was doing that mosaic of the veil and it messed up the orientation of them, it had a bug or something. If I had known that trick, it would have been a no-brainer. Just go right back to those 4 panels.
That's good to know, Gary. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah. One of the hidden features there.
Yeah. Now that won't fix camera rotation, obviously, but that's
Right.
a whole separate thing.
But you can buy the camera rotator now.
Well,
Yeah, I actually twist my whole OTA, and my TV85 has that clamshell.
Yeah.
I loosen that because then I don't have to take new flats. That's how much I hate taking flats. I loosen that little half, the little flip handle thing, the little
Yeah,
screw. I rotate the whole OTA with the camera and just lock it back up, and it's worked fine.
my luck, it would slide off and the whole OTA would slide off onto the ground.
Yeah, except for the time when I rotated it the opposite direction and the focuser was too close to the mount, and then it wound up binding into the mount. That was a Cherry Springs learning experience too. Oh, I guess I didn't need the last 2 hours worth of data because the mount wasn't going, because the scope wasn't going
I
anywhere.
got snagged.
I think
I'm
it
just
got mad
glad
and
to
went into,
know
like,
I'm not the only one that's
overturned.
done that.
What's that?
I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that's done
Yeah.
No, we should have a bloopers night.
it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, looking at
anyway.
my flats, I noticed a lot of specks that were well out of focus, and so I decided, okay, my OTA needs cleaning. I cleaned that. It wasn't that bad. So, and I tried a flat and it was the same. So I finally realized I had a UV IR cut filter on the camera, and that's where the dust was.
Yeah,
So I cleaned that, and I think my flat should look better now.
yeah.
Yeah.
They won't be as good
Although
as Tom's.
it'll compensate for it. If it's not on the chip itself, it should be able to compensate for it if you do the flats.
Yeah, even on the chip, I had that problem at Cherry Springs where I got some kind of condensation or something on the sensor. And I'm so glad I took flats, a second set of flats, because I had moved the scope from the Cherry Springs field to the Big Dipper Lodge.
Mhm.
And I didn't change the camera, but I thought, I moved stuff around. Let me just do flats for the heck of it. I'm so glad I did. That actually took them out, and it was on the sensor.
Hmm.
I would have lost 2 nights worth of data, like 2 good nights worth of data.
Wow.
So I'm a firm believer in them, even if it's on the sensor.
Yeah. They are a pain in the butt, but they are worth it.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
good seeing everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good meeting. I think that's,
Lou would be proud.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. See all you
Jeremy
guys
sent an
Friday
email.
night.
I noticed an email come in, Jeremy sent about services, some dates, so it looks like things are getting, things are moving ahead with that
Okay.
for Lou's memorial service. I didn't read the email, I just saw the heading.
All right.
So anyway, good seeing everyone and
Good night.
Okay.
take
Night,
care.
you guys.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care.
All right,
Take
everybody.
care.
Bye.
See ya.